Hi Year 9, it's Miss Mackie here. I hope you're all well and are ready for another week of Lord of the Flies. So last week, Miss Yeomans spoke to you about the character of Ralph, who is the novel's main protagonist. However, this week we'll be looking in more detail at Jack, who is the novel's antagonist, which basically means he is the villain. I'll quickly show you all the contents of the work booklet this week. So, as you can see, there are 9 activities to complete, and I've given you the page numbers of these activities in brackets. You don't have to do this booklet in one go, but instead perhaps try and work through a few activities every day to try and break it up a bit. So, the first activity is on page 3 of your booklet. All you have to do is read the information about Jack and highlight any keywords or phrases. However, I'll quickly tell you about him now. So, as previously mentioned, Jack is the antagonist of the novel. He is the antithesis of Ralph, which means he is the opposite. When we first meet Jack, he is already the leader of the choir boys, so he is already in a position of authority. However, he is not as fair and as kind as Ralph in his leadership style. In fact, he is arrogant and power hungry. So Miss Yeoman spoke last week about the idea of physiognomy, which is where a writer uses facial features to indicate character. So Ralph has fair hair, indicative of his fairness and justness of his leadership, but Jack is described as being tall and bony, and unlike Ralph's golden body, which makes the reader automatically slightly uneasy towards Jack. As the novel progresses, Jack becomes increasingly savage and turns away from the morals and values of British society. He becomes a sort of dictator as he has complete control over the choir boys and is a cruel and evil leader. So use this time now to read through the information on page 3 and highlight any keywords or phrases as you are reading. Your next task is on page 4 of your booklet and it's fairly simple. All you've got to do is match the vocab on the left hand side of the table to its definition on the right. I've done an example for you. So the antagonist is the character who opposes the protagonist, often a villain, as I've previously mentioned. So if you are struggling with any of these words, as they're quite high level, then you are allowed to use a dictionary or the internet to help you. To solidify your knowledge, underneath, I would like you to write 3 sentences with 3 new words of your choice from that table. I've done an example for you, so I've put antagonist into a sentence which says, Jack is the main antagonist of the novel due to his evil and controlling nature. Your next activity is on page 5 of your work booklet and it's fairly straightforward again, so I'd just like you to read through this extract and once again highlight or underline any interesting words or phrases about Jack. So let's talk about one idea now. So Jack says, choir, stand still, with these exclamatives evoking a sense of aggression and authority as he is commanding the choir. Although this is our first meeting with Jack, we understand him to be a dominant leader. On the next page, there are a few questions to answer about the passage you've just read. I'd like you to answer in full sentences, please, and if you're struggling, then look at the language really closely and think about what the words mean to help you understand Jack's character in more depth. Activity 5 is about Jack's appearance. You will have spoken to Miss Yeomans about physiognomy, and I've already mentioned this previously, so I want you to have a look at the 3 quotes from page 4 all about Jack's appearance, and I would like you to explode them. When we are exploding quotes, we look at specific words in that quote, so words we've got something to talk about. Looking at connotations of that word, so how it makes you feel and what it makes you think about, and if there are any language devices being used. So my example is using the quote, tall, thin and bony. I've added an arrow off the word tall because I think that it indicates that Jack is dominant because he has a physical kind of presence over the boys, and it also shows that he is superior. I said that thin and bony betrays Jack as unfriendly, sinister and unwelcoming, as he is the antithesis, so the opposite, to Ralph. Next is activity 6, and you'll find that on page 8 of your booklet. What I would like you to do here is read through this extract of Jack, which appears later on in the novel, and it details Jack turning savage. So I'll let you read this through by yourself. However, I'll kind of summarise it for you now. So the opening of the chapter shows Jack to be bent double. We can kind of infer that Jack is regressing into a more primitive and animalistic state due to the fact that he is bent double. He is hunched over and he's not stood on two legs like a human. Pathetic fallacy, so where the weather reflects the mood, is used effectively in this extract as the darkness of the jungle and the brooding clouds give an ominous and foreboding feel. So just to clarify, read through the extract and highlight any key words or phrases, then go back through the extracts and highlight or underline in a different colour any quotes to do with nature and the semantic field of it. Activity 7 is on page 9 of your booklet, and what I'd like you to do here is have a look at the previous extract in more detail. I've given you a hand by providing the quotes for you on the left hand side, and what I want you to do is read that quote and have a think about what you think that quote shows about Jack and his character or the environment that he is in. So for example, the quote "Jack was bent double," I have said infers that Jack is slowly turning more savage and less human. The fact that he was bent double implies that he has lost his upright position and was stooping as an animal such as an ape would when it is on the prowl. Activity 8 is your penultimate activity and it's on page 10 of your booklet. So what I want you to do here is collate all of the information you have gathered and understood about Jack and put it into a mind map, which will be really good revision for next year. So what I want you to do is think of, first of all, adjectives to describe Jack, and I've actually given you 2 to help you out on the slide, so evil and antagonist. So think of some more words and you can use ones that we've looked at today. I also want you to think about quotes and what quotes you can remember from the extracts that best describe Jack. And also, what are the significant plot points that Jack is involved in? So your final activity is a write-up, and I want you to write a response to the question, how is the character of Jack presented in the novel? I want this to be more of a free write, so I want you just to kind of write your thoughts and ideas without a rigid structure, but I've actually provided you some guidance instead in the 4 bullet points on the slide. So I want you to write 3 paragraphs at least. I want you to use a quote and zoom in on a word, and I want you to discuss how Jack changes throughout the novel. And lastly, I want you to discuss how he is different to Ralph, so you can use your knowledge from last week's work with Miss Yeomans. Have a great week, everyone. I'm so impressed with the level of work that you've been producing so far, so keep it up. Any questions, as ever, contact your teachers on Show My Homework or email them and they will gladly help.